So the idea with the first four elements that we've talked about is, like, you wonder, like, what is the purpose? What's the mission here? What are you trying to do? And think with the person about it. To talk about what it's like to insert your mind. To get narrative episodes. To wonder what the psychological problem is. And those are all things I think that we thought some about in Tom's excellent case presentation. The fifth element is then to wonder about what is the sort of relationship that we have? Like, what is this thing that we do when we meet? And importantly, the purpose of this is not to make sure it's a good and healthy or warm relationship, but to at least know what it is and to wonder about it and to think about whether there are ways that whatever it is are helpful or not helpful. And to be able to ultimately look at these activities which are taking place when we meet with patients, like the woman Tom presented, and what is the relationship that we have in which we're reflecting on this. And so, for example, one way to get at this with the case we've just presented is Tom has told us that the patient wondered about, I didn't think you took so many notes. So is the relationship where Tom is a scribe? Is he sort of supposed to be the person who is recording her history and recording her complaints or recording her craziness? So let's assume that there are many ways that this relationship is. And if so, how is he doing at that? Obviously, he's not taking enough notes. And, should he be, is it important for her that he be taking more notes if he's going to fulfill this role? And what's the purpose of this role? As the person who's the scribe, let's say that's what's happening, who's he supposed to share this with? Is he going to get in trouble if he shares it? Because it seems like he got in a little bit of trouble by sharing some things. I wonder too if he's a guy who's just outside. He's different than her. They're not alike. And that their relationship is one of unrelatability. So I put myself again, Tom, in your shoes. I'm trying to relate to her. This patient has family members in jail. I've never had family members in jail. Everyone in my family went to college. My sister actually went to a couple of colleges until she found the right one. But everyone went to college. People are employed. And I wonder if there are ways that she understands you to be different. You went to college. You have a job. Perhaps undoubtedly there are a number of loved ones in your life. And I wonder if you're a kind of person who's just so different. You're the doctor, and doctors are not the same kind of beings as her. Sometimes when she's yelling at you, I wonder if you're supposed to be a punching bag. If you're supposed to absorb all her anger, and she gets to tee off on you and yell and scream and carry on. Again, this is this idea I have of indulgence, which maybe is a wrong idea. I may have my guy in my head, the guy I meet with in my head, which is why I say that. But I wonder if when she's yelling, am I supposed to be your punching bag? When she's saying things to you that seem, crazy and disorganized, you're the guy who's supposed to know that something's really wrong. That she's not making sense, or she's believing things that other people would think are crazy. I can't tell if in part you're supposed to be like a confessor who she's going to outwit. Are you the ambassador from sort of the normal world or the regular world? And, like the missionary bringing Tupperware or something. Some Aboriginal group so far away because of your wonderful civilization and not appreciating the universe she's in. Are you supposed to be someone who's jointly helpless? Is this a relationship where you're sort of stuck with her? I'm thinking sort of again of Chris's patient, who there is the sense of, oh my God, you just smash everything up, and will you ever stop? And I just sort of like, someone who's along with you for the ride, to see it and to see that there's something that's inhuman about it. You're supposed to be someone who knows that she's important. Are you like a younger brother? Or I guess you'd be an older brother, be a younger brother to me, or a nephew. But are you like, are you an uncle to her? Or, or maybe you can't be an uncle because you've never been to jail. I don't know. Would you have to do a lot of drugs for a long time before you could relate to her? Should that be your assignment? Not that you're going to take it, but all just sort of thoughts about how to talk about what is this, who are we together as a dyad who's thinking together? So, like, what is it really like to talk to me? And this guy says, forgive me because I've probably told this story before, but he says, you're like seeing the dean. And like, what's that mean? You're the guy who's going to hand down the punishment. And I'm like, so what am I supposed to do as the dean? What do you come to see the dean for? And he goes, well, you don't ask the dean for anything. You go to the dean to see what he's going to do. So I see you and I wait for see what you're going to do. And I mean, it was so interesting that it brought out that it was a very passive relationship. I was a very powerful other. My motives were inscrutable, and I seemed to have a threatening quality. So I told him, I don't like this role you've given me. Am I stuck with it? And he goes, yeah, you kind of are stuck with it. I don't know what we can do about it. And I don't know if you're stuck with, Tom, with the roles that you're stuck with, that you find yourself in with your particular patient. So I ended up saying to the guy, I said, all right, so there's got to be something we could do. Now, maybe it's nothing we really can do, but what in the world could we do so I didn't have to be the dean anymore? Because I don't want to be the dean. And it's like, yeah, I know what we can do. We can go to Las Vegas, the gambling capital of the United States, of course. Like, oh my God, I say his name. It's like, okay, Joe, all right, we could go to Vegas, but there are some problems here. And he goes, yeah, I know. I said, no, they're real problems. First of all, I know you like to gamble and I hate gambling. Gambling makes me anxious. It's no fun for me. He goes, like, all right. I said, but there are more problems than that. I love to drink and you can't drink because you have alcoholism. He's like, okay. And he says, no, but there's a solution. And he basically says, we'll go to shows and look at pretty women dancing. I was like, okay, Joe, you've solved our problem. So as soon as we get this trip going, then I don't have to be the dean. But until then, I guess I'm sort of stuck. And he laughs and then, but it sort of opens something up for sort of the possibility of relatability. And because you can't really reflect with someone if you can't relate somehow. And I feel like one of the key characteristics in Tom's presentation is that the patient presents with behaviors that are completely unrelatable. Like, none of you would have gotten through graduate school if you acted like that. You wouldn't keep jobs. You wouldn't, you'd all be in jail if apparently the relatives of the patient. So it's hard to relate to that life. And so this guy and I, he imagines we could be in Las Vegas and go to shows. So, all right, okay. We at least have something. And it's kind of becomes a point of a joke, like, well, when are we going to get to Las Vegas together? I think being able to talk about the unrelatability seems like it offers, even if you're not fixing it, it offers sort of deeper sort of things. And I don't know, Tom, what this woman pulls for you, it seems like there's some deep sympathy that she needs someone to be on her side. I don't know if that's pulled for in this. Another guy I'm thinking of, and I may also have told the story, so forgive me, but it's another thing where he and I are in this unrelatable position. He's not listening to anything I say. Everything I say sounds like hollow doctor talk to him. Like, don't do bad things, do good things. You can do it. Here's a coping skill. And it seems very superficial. And I finally say to him, and he's a guy with a significant drug history, look, I think this isn't going anywhere until I go out with you and we do a lot of drugs. It just cracks up. And looks at me like, and I'm like, no, we're not going to go. I don't do drugs. Even if I did, I couldn't do them with you. We're not doing drugs. But that's what it would take. And it gets to being able to talk about that. There's something about us that makes this distance so that reflection is not possible. The sixth element then is, as a result of all this, what do you get? What changes in your mind? What is the point or the purpose? So again, something that like all therapies do, you want to ask someone like what they like, not just to talk to me, but what happens to you as a result of this? Nothing, something. Is it good? Is it bad? My particular patient who came in and told me, all deeply psychotic things, and I just said, I think something's really wrong, that I should be alarmed, that I should take this seriously, was able to say, I don't quite figure out, I can't figure out, and I may have told you guys this, but I can't quite figure out why, but this is like getting a boil lanced. There's this terrible pressure that somehow seems to go away. And I don't know why. And that raises the question, is it good that it goes away? And he's like, oh yeah, definitely. I definitely want it to go away. Because otherwise it just builds up in me and I don't know how to live with it. And at that point, you've got a beautiful reflection about a psychological problem that hadn't come up in the session. What had come up were psychotic comments about other people. But now there's a pressure in this man that he doesn't know how to make it go away. And there's something really strange about our relationship that makes it go away. It's interesting. But he also is not sure what to make of me. I don't get very far with what is my role, other than I'm someone who's hospitable and respectful to him. And he gets something he wants because I make coffee, I listen to him, I share thoughts only after asking, if it's all right to share them. And that seems to make a big difference. So if we look at Tom's patient, I kind of want to ask her, even if the session appeared to have been great or if it was awful, what it was like. And this is, I think, is an important opportunity. So if there's a kind of closeness that's growing, that's scary, that can get voiced. So it's like, yeah, this went really well. I feel like I'm feeling more confident in myself. I'm feeling like, whatever. Well, is that good or not? Is that or is that something expected? Are you happy that happened? I saw a guy this week, and he had an experience to do with caring for his home, where he was highly successful at getting a job done and getting it at a reduced price. And he's like, I feel competent. And he talked about how this is such at odds with so much of his life where he never feels competent, where other people do things for him. And he's like, yeah, I did this on my own. And when we talked about it, he goes, yeah, I'm discovering I can do things on my own. And it's like, so is that good? And he goes like, well, no, not necessarily. What if I lose my pension? What if everything collapses? Like, this is not that great, kind of, he says, more or less, while laughing at the same time. And he's like, are you going to be on my side if there are bad consequences for getting healthy? Because, like, you're kind of provoking this, saying to me. But so we have this thought then about not just what's going on, but what changes happen in him? What's it like? My goodness, this one man I remember who just would spout hate speech, and it was so difficult to think about his life. And what he ended up saying is, it feels good to have a spout, which I don't even know what that spout, I assume that means to have a catharsis. Feel good to vent, to scream, to yell, to holler. And I'm like, what would make it feel good? And is it good that you do that? He goes, no, it feels great because it doesn't happen anywhere else in my life. Everywhere else in my life, the pressure is just building and I'm like dissolving inside, more or less is what he says. I think this requires permission to like not pat you on the head, to notice that you're not helping, that it seems like, you weren't on a particular day, or you didn't get to talk about a certain thing. I always want to know if someone is surprised by if the session goes good. I don't ask the question entirely blankly, so if it feels like it's been a very cathartic session, I don't want to ask in a neutral way, how was it? Because then it was like, weren't you listening? Like, were you paying attention? Or if I feel like it isn't gone well, I certainly have said, I'm not so sure this went so well today. And I remember one guy saying, yeah, next time we meet, I'm going to bring a lawyer. And so, it's like, so what made it bad? What could have been different? What is the role? What should I be doing? I remember one guy saying, I feel nothing. Do you think I should? want me to pretend I feel something? And I said, so at least one thing you're doing now is you're not pretending. You're not pretending that this was a good interaction when it wasn't. How is that? He goes, well, that feels better. So at that point, at least he felt something. It wasn't very much because he was also planning a drug relapse, which I sort of knew, but didn't sort of realize until he was out the door before I could have said, hey, I have this idea. I don't want to make you mad, but. So what in Merit, I think what we're hoping is that the therapist tries to talk about the relationship.
In this video, one of the things we would have learnt is that when one spent time with Paul, his theory was so much more than sometimes the elements in his writing. Essentially, his approach was synthetic, in which he related to the humanity of both the individual and also brought the relationship between therapist and patient into the room, providing meaning for the patient to make sense of their own lives.